So I was here for 4 years in the CSL, and I got the itch. I don't know what kind of itch, but I left Xerox and I went to work for electronic funds transfer at Citibank. And then I came back 7 months later. David Liddell managed to well, I made a horrible mistake, and he was there to rescue me from the mistake in Los Angeles. But the pin was sent to me by accident. Someone didn't notice that I'd left the company. And then I came back, and then somebody wanted the pin returned because they noticed I hadn't been here 5 years yet because of the gap. And then David wrote a letter convincing them that I had suffered from temporary insanity and therefore was entitled to the pin. Anyway, that's my 5-year pin. I ultimately stayed for 8 years. In the beginning, when I was first, this is a little bit about personnel management. My offer letter that Jerry Elkind and Bob Taylor sent said that there was a special new program that PARC had, CSL, for 3-year appointments, and that I would be honored to receive such a thing, which I immediately accepted and came. And then after about a year, Elkind called me into his office and said, you know, we've reconsidered this 3-year program, and we've been convinced that it's, you know, we thought it would be a way of keeping turnover in the lab so there'd be fresh blood coming all through, but we've had so many complaints about this silly thing that we've eliminated the 3-year program. And I said, well, not for me, you haven't. At the end of 3 years, I'm going to reconsider whether I want to stay here. And that's how I ended up leaving and then coming back some years later. So there's one story. How was that? Does anyone have any questions you want to ask? The other story, so I was a networking guy. I had been an ARPANET guy at MIT. And the way this works is whatever, in those days anyway, whatever ARPA was sponsoring was all grad students would flock to it. And since I was an ARPANET grad student, I was a hot commodity in the ARPA community, and PARC was part of the ARPA community. Bob Taylor had worked at ARPA. So I got an offer to come here to be the networking guy. And then when I arrived, I realized there was a guy working on networking ahead of me. And his name was Charles Simonyi. And he was working on a network, a local network to network this building, and it was called Signet. You know, like the Signet ring, I thought. No, actually, Signet stands for Simonyi's Infinitely Glorious Network. So I'm the networking guy, and there's this punk kid from Berkeley who's working on Signet, and I needed to, you know, shove him aside somehow, and he gladly handed it to me. And he said, here, he described Signet to me, and I was going to continue that work. And then he was going to go off and take on another project, which I only learned later. But he got the better of that deal. He went off and did Bravo, which became Word. And so his house is bigger than mine. That's another story. You want to elaborate on it? Charles is right here, so you can elaborate on that story if you want. Does anyone have a question that they'd like to ask? Seriously. Is there some story? What's that?
Why did you come back?
Why did I come back? Well, because the itch I had was I was done with research. And even when I started here, my goal was to do something. I said to, I don't know if I said it to Alan, was really the reason I came here. And I don't know if I told him, but I told somebody that my goal was to do something that Xerox would make $1 million of. And then after 4 years, it was clear that I needed to leave research and do something else. That's why I sort of wandered off, but then came back to join the new systems development division that David Liddell had started, whose goal, roughly speaking, and now you'll correct me later, was to take all the developments gushing out of CSL and SSL and take them into the marketplace. And that sounded like an interesting next step for me. That's why I came back, was to join all that. The sad part was after 4 years, those products were further away from market than when I joined. There was this slip schedule then. Maybe that's an exaggeration.
Well, once they have to actually work, it stretches things out.
And David taught me this thing. PARC, when I was there, everybody, I'm exaggerating again, had a PhD. Everybody, like the janitors had PhDs. And in SDD, Liddell explained to me, we were going to have to succeed using blue-collar workers. That is, we couldn't rely on PhDs to do everything. We had to recruit normal people to build this entity, which then worked on. So it was fun to come back and do that. And of course, to anticipate your next question, the reason I left the second time was that the itch came again, and I was done being a manager, and I wanted to be an entrepreneur. So I gave David 7 months' notice. And the letter said to pursue entrepreneurial ambitions. And I left having no idea what I was going to do. But in those days, you know, we had Bill and Dave around, and we had Steve and Bob Noyce, and so it was, you know, everybody was going to start a company, so I thought it would be just normal for me to do that, and eventually did. With Xerox's help, I might add. You know, when you give 7 months' notice, I have a 1-minute warning. I'm not going to take offense. No, I'm done.
You have to be careful. His only thing sharper than his tongue was his serve in tennis.